So a while back I saw on Reddit somebody had made an automated system using one of the Feed the Beast mod packs to make some kind of one of the more powerful meals. And actually, months before that, I had been playing with Foolcraft 3 and had made my own automated system to make Thankful Dinner, which is like the most overpowered kind of meal you can possibly get with Pam's Harvestcraft. So before I could do that, what I did was I made myself a dependency graph that shows what kind of ingredients are required for each time you have to craft something for crafting an ingredient. So you craft some ingredient that goes into another recipe that goes into another recipe and so forth. And so here we have on the screen a PDF of that dependency graph, where here in the center we've got our Thankful Dinner. And so first what I'm going to do real quick is go over what the dependencies were, and then I'll go through in Minecraft and show what that looks like in the game. So let's begin with up here. Okay, so some arbitrary spot. The arrows are what the dependencies are. So here we've got Marshmallow, which is dependent on egg, and it's dependent on water and sugar. Sugar is dependent on cane, and so putting those together, you can get marshmallow. Also need cranberry jelly as one of the ingredients for Thankful Dinner, and that's dependent on cranberries and sugar. So we've got two dependencies on sugar. We have, in order to get sweet potato pie, which is another ingredient in Thankful Dinner, we need, as I mentioned, marshmallow, we need cinnamon, and we need sweet potato. So I have farms for those. And then we have corn. We actually have two dependencies on corn because two of the slots for the Thankful Dinner recipe can be different kinds of vegetables, and I decided to just put corn in both of those. Now you need turkey or tofurkey. So I made that. So Thankful Dinner is dependent on cooked tofurkey, and you need to use a furnace to cook raw tofurkey, which is made from bread, cooking oil, and firm tofu. We have another ingredient is toast, which is made from toasting bread. We have mashed potatoes, which is dependent on buttered potato, and that's dependent on baked potato and butter. And the baked potato requires a furnace to make. It requires a furnace to be made from potatoes. Okay, so what else? Mashed potato is dependent on salt, which is made from water buckets. I can't remember which machine that was required, but you'll see when I go through it. So let's see. So the sweet potato pie is also dependent on dough, which is dependent on water and salt. And the dough is dependent on flour, which is dependent on wheat. And the same place makes the seeds, and I use the seeds to make the cooking oil. And let's see. So then to the tofurkey and the butter. So this is, I guess, vegan butter. So tofurkey is based on firm tofu, where we use a centrifugal separator on silken tofu. And silken tofu is made from soybeans, which use a centrifugal separator. And so we use that to make both butter and firm tofu. So let's go back into the game and see if we can go through this. Okay, so let's start over here. This is where the soybeans are. And here we've got a farmer. And this is an Actually Additions farmer. And it's been given soybeans. And so, and when it outputs, here we have, see if I can get up here. We've got a little connection with servo that's pulling items out of this, the soybeans, into this centrifugal separator. And so it's making actually this waste ingredient. Basically, I can use that to actually make energy. I've got some kind of device down below that can turn this into redstone flux. And but the main thing we care about is the silken tofu, which goes into here as a temporary storage location, and it also goes up into here. The other centrifugal separator. Oh, look, what is that? Oh no, that's in my inventory. And that's being used to make the firm tofu. Okay, so the firm tofu also goes through here. So we got silken tofu and firm tofu, and the various places that's going to for additional crafting have filters on them, so they go to the right places. Okay, next ingredient we have here is wheat. And so, of course, we have the Actually Additions farmer. And here we're pulling both the seeds and the wheat out. So here's the thing that pulls out the wheat. And we've got an auto crafter. And this is one of the auto crafters that doesn't run on redstone flux. There's some, I've had to use two different types. This is like cheap to run. It doesn't use redstone flux. I think it uses some other kind of wireless energy. But there are other ones where the input rates of different recipe ingredients are too fast and the slots get filled up and it kind of breaks the system. So for some of the crafting I have to use a different kind of more sophisticated auto crafter that has to rely on redstone flux to run. So anyway, this one uses mortar, pestle, and wheat, and it's outputting flour, which is going to go somewhere else. So this crafter is being used to with a juicer and seeds to make cooking oil. So the next thing over here is the sweet potato, which here's the farmer farming sweet potato, and down here we've got an auto crafter for the cinnamon, ground cinnamon. And the cinnamon's actually being made below, so I'll have to show you that later. And what else we got here? And so here we have a different kind of auto crafter. This auto crafter runs on redstone flux, and it's click on the recipe here, and we see the different items that are needed for making sweet potato pie. So we got the sweet potato dough, which is coming from somewhere over there. We have well, come on, glitchy thing. There we go. Marshmallows, which I'll show you where that comes from. There's the cinnamon and okay. So and what else is there? So we got okay. That's the auto crafter for the cinnamon, and that's the one for the sweet potato pie. Okay, so I mentioned earlier that corn requires is being used as 2 recipe ingredients. So I've got 2 corn farms. So here's the farmer. There's another one up there. Okay, and let's see what else. Okay, so here's where we make the eggs. This one's a little complicated to get it to work. See if I can show you what I'm doing here. Okay, so we've got I think the thing is stuck. Yeah, that happens. Yeah, it's stuck because, well, no, it's not stuck because this thing's overloaded. But anyway, so I'm making marshmallows, and for the recipe, we need eggs, sugar, which is coming from another farm to the left over there, and water. And so the fluid transposer's job is to fill a bucket and then cycle the bucket around into this auto crafter. And this is one of the auto crafters that uses redstone flux because it has a tendency to get overloaded. So we have these slots that are locked, so it doesn't. So there's always open slots for certain ingredients. Otherwise, they'll all fill up, and then some of the ingredients won't be in there, and then it can't craft. Okay. So, all right. So over here we got our cane farm, and so this is just the farmer for the sugar cane, and we have the auto crafter. It's just turning. This is the simple auto crafter, and it's turning sugar cane into sugar, which is being fed into here. And as I mentioned, there's 2 dependencies on the sugar, so it's possible that make this thing run at high speed, I would need a second one of these farms, but as you'll see at the end, we've really got more than enough. Okay, so we got sugar. So sugar goes in for the marshmallows, but also comes over here to make the cranberry jelly. So that recipe is dependent on cranberries. It has a saucepan which just stays there, and sugars. And so these are the cranberries. That's the farmer that's farming the cranberries. And okay, so over here, this is where we have the potatoes. And this is the farmer. This is a redstone furnace, and that's being used to make baked potatoes. And then this autocrafter, which is one of the redstone flux ones, it's RF tools, because it's one of the ones that can get backed up if too many of a particular kind of ingredient get in there. So this one is being used to make the buttered potato, and so some ingredients are coming from that way, which I'll get into in a moment. So so after the buttered potato comes out, we send it through another crafter, which has this recipe. Basically, it's salt and buttered potato making mashed potatoes. All right, now let's look over here. Now we need to get salt, and this is using the simple extra utilities mechanical crafter, and really all it is, it's a pot and a water bucket. And so what I do is I cycle these around. The way this crafter works is it's either we want to kick out the bucket, which is a container, but we don't want to kick out the pot. Unfortunately, it's all or nothing. So when this is done crafting, it's going to make salt, but once it's done making salt, it's either going to hang on to the empty bucket and the pot, or it's going to or it's either going to hang on to both or it's going to get rid of both. So instead of, I might have been able to fix this using the more sophisticated kind of crafter, but at the beginning I was trying to do all of this with this kind of extra utilities mechanical crafter. So what I do is they all come out, and then I've got filters on, let's see, yeah, so this is a filter for pulling out the pot, and there's a filter, a servo is what pulls out. Filters are for going in. But anyway, and this is the servo for pulling the bucket out. So the bucket gets pulled out of here, and that's just a temporary storage. It goes into the fluid transposer, which fills the bucket with water, sends it into here, and is used to craft the salt. Okay, so we got the bucket cycling this way, and we've got the pot cycling around through that. Okay, so the salt goes in here, and it goes in a couple of different places. And so one of the places goes to the mashed potatoes that way, which we saw earlier, and it also goes a few different places. It actually goes. Okay, so here we have salt being used to make butter. So we've got our silken tofu and our salt and a saucepan, and this one needs to be. You'll see that it stopped working because I used one of the simple auto crafters, and there's no slot to put salt in, so I have to clear that out. So I may want to come back and replace this with a with the other kind of auto crafter. But anyway, okay, so that's where the salt comes from. That's the butter. The butter goes over there to the baked potatoes. And what do we got going on here? Okay, so this is dough. So dough, let's look at the recipe for the dough. It requires salt, flour, which we saw. It requires water buckets. And that water bucket, here's another. I used to use the same fluid transposer, but it's so slow that I needed to add in another one. So this fluid transposer gives us the water buckets, and it cycles the bucket through and then back in. So let's see, where this is the servo for the bucket, right? So and then there's another servo down here, which pulls out the mixing bowl, which has to cycle back in, okay? Because this is using, well, it used to use the cheap kind of autocrafter, but anyway, so the mixing bowl and the water bucket have to come out, and then that has to come back in. That's got to be refilled from the fluid transposer. That flour comes over from the wheat station over there, and this is the salt from over to the left. Okay, so now that we got dough goes a couple of places. Okay, so so one of the places that the dough goes is here. This is, no, not this. This is a redstone furnace where we're baking it to make bread. Okay, and then there's another redstone. Yes. Okay. So this one makes this one uses dough to make bread, and that's being pulled out. We don't need a filter on that one. And then we have another redstone furnace over here that's being used to turn the bread into toast. All right. So where else does the dough go? So that's the input. Where do we have the output here? Dough. So dough is also used to make the sweet potato pie. Oh, and we saw that earlier. Here's dough coming out and going here, but there's also another pipe, which is a little hard to see, where it goes up and over and into the crafter over there to make the sweet potato pie. All right, now we have the Tofurkey. So again, I had to use this redstone type crafter because the slots fill up. As you see, there's so much cooking oil, it's ridiculous. And so that's crafting the raw Tofurkey. Okay, we have bread, we have the cutting board, which I am able to get to stay in there. We've got cooking oil, and we got firm tofu. So that's going to go into this furnace to make cooked Tofurkey. All right, and so let's see if there's anything else we got. So the other thing I need to show you is the source of the cinnamon. And so I've got this cinnamon block. Don't remember what kind of tree it came from, but I had to go searching quite a bit to find one of these. And here we've got a user block, and it's set up to right-click on this thing. So every time it's got to a certain growth stage and you right-click it, then it drops off a piece of this cinnamon. And so it gets powdered up above, and here's the cinnamon that gets sent up to get ground up at the rest of the farms. So finally, all these ingredients come together into this last one here. As you can see, it's really full. Some of the ingredients come in from below, as you can see down there. I had to dig under. It's really complicated where all the different places things come from. And so we have this thankful dinner recipe with all these different ingredients that we saw. Corn twice, as I mentioned, and there you go.